Here we begin looking south along the extraordinary barrier island of Padre Island National Seashore, Gulf Coast of Texas. Kathy and I wish to present a vignette field study of this beautiful and protected area. As we briefly explore this treasured habitat where ocean and the shore exist so interdependently and exquisitely, it is revealed that this Gulf Coast barrier island and the rocky coast of Maine have many unexpected things in common. The habitats and appearances are far different from each other, but related organisms and shared geologic factors of formation lead to an interesting comparison. It is surprising to realize that these seemingly disparate environments formed due to a global sea level rise as the glaciers of the last major ice age melted away, about 10,000 years ago. This was followed by a period of sea level stability of the last several thousand years, and that's important information. Barrier islands formed in this period of stability over a very short geologic time frame. They're very young geologic features. These linear islands formed along the Gulf Coast and Atlantic Coast all the way up to New England, and this has resulted from an equilibrium between sediments being washed in from the land and then deposited by wind, waves, and ocean currents. Barrier islands are long, narrow strips of sand close to the mainland and separated from it by shallow, linear back lagoons. And within these environments, an amazing assemblage of habitats and organisms exist. Padre Island is truly extraordinary because of its national park protected status and its 60-mile length of intact, natural, preserved habitat. Really a beautiful place. Let's sample some of this life and this unique setting.
It's a brown algae that's a relative of kelp that we see in Maine. It lives free floating out in the open ocean where it's carried along by ocean currents, and some of it occasionally washes up on the shore. It is important habitat for a lot of small fish, invertebrates, and also baby sea turtles that float around and use it for protection. It's also an important food source. Even after it washes up on the beach, it provides food for shorebirds and other scavengers. It traps sand as well, and that helps stabilize the beach. Over time, it decomposes, and its nutrients are returned to the ocean.
Beautiful cluster of Coquina bivalves here. They're about 1/4 of an inch long, and you can see many of them trying to move their way back into the sand. They live in the swash zone, and they're eating diatoms, other microscopic plankton. They're excellent at filter feeding. However, they're also in a precarious environment because other things want to eat them. Crabs, birds of all kinds, and they're constantly on the move with the moving swash zone here at Padre Island.
An interesting thing that washes up on the beach is these yellow strands, which are actually coral, a type of soft coral called wood coral, and it lives in colonies that attach in the sediment on the shore. Sometimes waves break them and they wash in. Corals, just like tropical reef corals, they are a colony of many individual animals, and they create a whole community of unique organisms in the coastal zone. Here's a closer look.
Here we have gooseneck barnacles at Padre Island. They appear to be a bivalve, but actually they are relatives of the crustaceans like the common rock barnacle we see in Maine. However, their lifestyle is quite different. As you notice, they're attached to this driftwood. They attach to many moving things, including wildlife, perhaps even sea turtles. And so their ability to feed is more expanded over something that is locked into a sessile environment, but they live a life of risk. As you can see, these guys have been stranded on this piece of driftwood. More of the life of Padre Island National Seashore, a beautiful barrier island. Here we are in the swash at Padre Island National Seashore, and we're going to do our best to give you a glimpse of what the cross-section, a walking cross-section of Padre Island and a barrier island may look like. So here we're reaching up out of the swash into the foreshore, and we will see where the sargassum has washed in. That would be our berm area, and then we reach the back beach. The back beach is also known as the stranding area or strand area. Difficult for organisms to live there, not much food, not much shelter. You may recognize some of those terms from our beach studies in Maine. And here we approach the first set of dunes. These are embryonic dunes where the pioneering plants, grasses, vines, other things are capturing some of the sands, preventing erosion. And those dunes may continue and grow into larger dunes, but they are the key of holding that sand in place, preventing erosion. And as we go up, see some beautiful plants here. We have a partridge pea, we have gutfoot morning glory in bloom. I'm going to continue a little faster, and then up to what would be really a middle-sized dune. We're not at the primary dunes yet, but we've already gained some elevation, 10 to 12 feet. And as you can tell, the ecology, the plant communities, associated animal communities would change very quickly with a short distance and short elevation. Those mounds you see in the distance, near distance, those are pocket gopher mounds. There are many, many mammals and birds and reptiles that live here. Beyond the dunes especially is their primary habitat, and many predators, badgers, coyotes, and foxes, and smaller predators as well. And we're approaching a primary dune, and that is our greatest height. More vining plants. We're getting into many different grasses. And this beautiful vista from the top of a primary dune. And here we are looking into the interior of Padre Island. Beyond the dunes, beyond the primary dunes, there is a secondary dune in the field of view. And those do form, and those do add a secondary shelter and protection for the interior. The interior tends to be very arid and a harsh place for things to live, but an incredible number of organisms, predator and prey, live their lives, their entire existence in the interior areas. Padre Island may be 3 miles wide in some places, down to a few thousand feet as you go along the many, many miles of Padre Island. Dominated by grasses, cord grasses, also bulrush, many, many other grasses. If you look into the distance, you might see very low ridges. Those run parallel with the dunes and the beachfront. And those also provide some protection for organisms to dig their burrows, to find food supplies, to find shelter in storms. But between those are swales, and those are shallow valleys that will often collect fresh water, rainwater, and those are seasonal, and those are incredibly important for wildlife water sources across the island. Now, if we could continue across about 2 miles at this point, you would see where we get to the back of the island. That is the lagoon side, or the back bay side, and gradually as elevation dropped a few feet, you would get into an area that's dominated by the tides, and you'd have salt marsh grasses, very similar to what we see in the salt marshes that we study in Maine. And those grasses, of course, has to be tolerant to the salts and the physical stresses put upon them in this situation. And then beyond those salt marsh grasses, you get into that back lagoon. And here at Padre, it's the mysterious Laguna Madre. It has many populations of oysters, and it's nursery for many organisms, including sea turtle. Juvenile sea turtles often find their way there and survive through the winter there, eating seagrasses and other things. This is all part of the extraordinary realm, coastal realm of Padre Island. These images only hint at the wonders of a conserved natural barrier island. Oh, so ecologically and environmentally important for marine life and shore life. We hope you've enjoyed this elemental field excursion, and we plan on bringing you Volume 2 of Extraordinary Coastal Realms, the rocky main coast of Mount Desert Island and the shoreline of Acadia National Park, later in the summer. I think this will lend itself to a fun and interesting comparison. Until then, from Tim and Kathy, thank you for sharing the exploration.